it big. But me, your man, Louie T. You know what it is. Post up and take command. I, of course, am your commander-in-chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. We're live tonight, and there's a lot to discuss with this team, as it always is. You know, I've seen so much on social media over the last week or so, from frustration of watching 3 of your 4 family members playing this weekend in divisional round weekend, and being the only team at home, not making the playoffs, and understanding that these teams in the division aren't going anywhere. This isn't a one-off. The Giants aren't just making a cameo. They're doing this in what was supposed to be a rebuild season. Jalen Hurts has established himself as a real, viable, starting NFL quarterback. At one point, this man was not only an MVP candidate, he was the favorite to be MVP before he sustained a late season injury. And Dallas is Dallas. Dak Prescott, that whole group, they're always talented. They'll always be in the mix. And so we got to get our shit together. And I've seen a lot of fans, you know, on socials really upset about where this team sits right now with a lot of question marks. And I'll tell you this. This offensive coordinator search is going to go a long way in determining if Washington is to turn it around next season, or if we'll have to wait until a full reboot with a new ownership group, or owner, a new head coach, and essentially new everything else, maybe quarterback, all of that good stuff. We don't know what's going to happen. Speaking of ownership, I just want to mention this real quick. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because, as I've told you, I really don't care who buys the team as long as Daniel Snyder's no longer here. What I'm gathering is that Daniel Snyder is going to sell majority stake in the team. So what that essentially means is he won't have any power within the organization. All you have to do as an NFL owner is own 51% of the shares of any company, but in particular, in the case that we're speaking of, the Washington Commanders, all you have to do is own 51% of the Commanders, and you then have the power to make all decisions. And the other owners or other owner, they're just minority owners. We've seen this already, right? With the Fred Drassners and all of the other guys that were on board, at the very beginning, and all the guys that were here from FedEx and all of that, the other guys that were here that he just bought out. Those were minority owners. They didn't own enough of the Washington Commanders or Washington organization to make any decisions. So on one hand, that's still great news that he's going to sell enough to not be in a controlling position. And that's great and fine and dandy. I don't want this man anywhere near this organization. I don't want him. I don't even care if he owns 1%. That's 1% too much. I want this man completely wiped from this organization. So if something dumb happens or an investigation goes sideways with him, it's former Washington Commanders owner. I don't want him to still linger. Even if he doesn't have the ability to make decisions, I don't even want him in the building. I don't even want him remotely close to the building. So I'm hoping that he's selling 100% of this company, of this organization, and not 55 or 60% and keeping the other 40 for him and his family. Because as we all know, the NFL is big business. You keep a little percentage of it, and you're still making some good bread off of it. Also, $6.5 billion or 6.3, I think is the highest bid to this point. That's a lot of damn money. That's generational wealth. Okay, so you really don't have to have a sliver, but he can do whatever he wants. We'll see. I just know that I want him gone. Period. End of discussion. We'll see what happens. So I got a few topics that I want to dive into tonight. All right. I talked about a couple of things that I think. So first and foremost, I love when I bring up a topic that's polarizing, that gets dialogue started. And even if you don't agree with me, which most of you did not, which I don't mind one bit, I like when dialogue is had. I like when there's banter. I like when there's a conversation that is taking place. And that seems to be the case with a couple of topics that I brought to the forefront over the last few days. So I wanted to talk about those. I don't know if you guys remember, but I told you guys about a week ago. I mean, it's probably been 2 weeks now, that I had a conversation that I wanted to bring to your forefront. And I said I was going to talk about it last week, and then Scott Turner got fired, and I said we'll put it on the back burner and we'll come back to it. We're going to come back to it tonight. So we're going to have a Taylor Heinicke discussion, and we're going to talk about the Heinicke dilemma that was brought to me by Derek B. And I somewhat agree with this, and I want to see what you guys think. If you're a part of the Heinicke hive and you want no parts of this conversation, you don't want to hear this shit. But we're probably talking about you if you're a part of the Heinicke hive. But we'll save that conversation here for a little bit later down the road in the show. But I want to start tonight by talking about offensive coordinator. Let's start with Lamar Jackson first and foremost. So I hope the title wasn't misleading. Lamar Jackson to DC ? Because I don't think it's going to happen. I've been adamant about this. Not only do I not think it's going to happen, I don't think he's going anywhere. I've been on the record as saying that I didn't think he was going anywhere. I started to waffle, as I often do with these situations, because I've been so wrong in the past with these quarterbacks. They're not getting traded. I've been one of those guys dying on the they're not getting traded hill, and I've died several times. I must be a cat, and I have 9 lives, because I died on that Russell Wilson hill for a little while there. Definitely died on the Deshaun Watson hill. And I could see the writing on the wall eventually with all those situations, but it took me a long time to get there, and I was willing to die on those hills. I don't think he's getting traded, and the move made today to me signifies that they're really not looking to trade him. And they've been consistent. The Ravens, got to give them credit. They've been consistent throughout this process, even when it seemed like it was somewhat going off the rails. They've been consistent with their messaging, which is, we want Lamar back. He's our franchise guy. We'll do whatever it takes to keep him here in Baltimore. That's been the consistent message. They haven't waffled. They haven't steered in any different direction. They've been going straight this entire time. And that straight route that they've taken is supposed to lead to Lamar Jackson staying in Baltimore long term. Today, them getting rid of Greg Roman is a sign that they are committed to Lamar Jackson. And it wasn't just getting rid of Greg Roman. It was getting rid of him and then making the announcement that Lamar Jackson would be a part of the decision-making process in selecting a new offensive coordinator. So remember the big fuss about, not including Deshaun Watson in some of the head coaching decisions, and that's what kind of soured the relationship in Houston. And, we see this. Russell Wilson wanted more authority, wanted more say-so over certain things. And, when you get guys that want to be involved, you're not talking about hiring the next GM. If you're hiring a head coach and you're marrying that head coach to a young quarterback, then that quarterback should be in the loop. Should maybe even if you don't want his opinion, let him feel like he's a part of the process. That's all they're asking for. Make them feel like they're a part of the process, even if you're disregarding everything that they say. Make them feel like they're a part of the process, okay, to appease them. Because even though these players aren't partners, for all intents and purposes, it's a people-driven league. All right. Sports in general is people-driven. It's hard for players to play for a coach that they don't like or respect. You can be professional, you can compartmentalize, and you can still do your job, but you're not running through a brick wall for a guy that you can't stand, and vice versa. If a coach doesn't really take to a player, he's not going above and beyond the call of duty to make sure that guy gets every opportunity to be successful. In saying that, Lamar Jackson is a guy that they believe in Baltimore. They built their entire structure of their team. Their organization is built on making sure that Lamar Jackson is successful. That used to be the Greg Roman way, which was to load up on tight ends, offensive linemen, get you a real legitimate fullback, whether it was Kyle Juszczyk once upon a time or now Patrick Ricard. They've always had, those positions filled. Roman, and so my argument with Lamar, so first of all, I don't think he's coming to DC. And I've already made it abundantly clear that I'm not interested. While I love his talent and I would love nothing more than to see him in a Commander's uniform, I understand that there are risks that come with Lamar Jackson. The same risk that the Baltimore Ravens see and are aware of and don't necessarily want to commit to Lamar in the manner that he would like them to commit to him. And I made the point on the podcast that it's tough when somebody looks over at someone in a different situation with a different set of circumstances and says, I want what he's having. That's what happened in the Tyreek Hill situation. He was negotiating with the Chiefs. They were probably going to settle on a number that made a lot more sense for all parties involved, or at least at the time, at least for the Chiefs' sake. Everybody was getting numbers that were right around 22, 23, 24 million a year. And so Tyreek was going to be in that neighborhood, 25, maybe 26 million. And then you get the trade with the Packers and the Raiders, and Devontae Adams ends up getting a deal every bit of 28 going on $29 million. And Tyreek Hill's like, wait a minute. I want what he's having. We were talking about 25, 26. He just got 28. I'm better than him. I want 30. I want what he's having. And the Chiefs are like, bro, we can't do what the Raiders just did. Well, he's like, well, then trade me then. Okay, we'll take care of that. Deshaun Watson, that deal in Cleveland, there were owners around the league, pretty much all of them, that were upset at the Cleveland Browns for the Deshaun Watson deal, because that's not how NFL owners conduct business. We don't give out fully guaranteed deals. We don't give out 5-year, $230 million deals to guys that haven't played football in 2 years and make it fully guaranteed. We don't do that in this league. And you just did it. And now you got a guy like Lamar looking like, Deshaun Watson? He ain't played ball in 2 years. He had allegations off the field. I won a league MVP. I got this team strapped to my back, and I'm taking them to the offs every year. I want what he's having. Let me get some of that. And the Ravens are like, oh, shit, we knew this was going to happen. No, Lamar, our situation isn't. He ain't trying to hit that shit. And normally an agent is able to talk to their client and let them know, bro, that money that you want, that's not feasible. Guess what? Lamar doesn't have an agent. So nobody's telling Lamar, hey, you're more inclined to start with the Kyler Murray deal, work your way up and get a really good deal for you, making 50, 49, $50 million a year. You're liable to get that. It ain't going to be fully guaranteed though. But Lamar ain't trying to hear that. So it's tough. But I've said this before. I'll say it again. He's going to get franchise tagged. I still think that a trade is on the table. I don't think it's going to happen, though. I would not rule anything out. But they want to work with Lamar because they know what Lamar Jackson is and what he means to their franchise. Not just on the field. he's been an ambassador for them off the field as well. He's a likable dude. He is very, very beloved in Baltimore, and that's their homegrown product. They don't want him anywhere else, nor should they. When he's on the field, they're winning football games at a very high clip. Okay, so I made the argument, though. This is what sparked conversation, that I don't think we need to argue about what it would take to get Lamar here. You know, what you would have to give up. You're probably going to have to give up a player or two in addition to, at a bare minimum, 2 first-round picks. Then you're going to have to turn around and pay him, 5 years, $250 million and fully guaranteed, or damn near fully guaranteed. 90% of that deal is guaranteed. 95% of it is guaranteed, which you're not looking to do. Okay. So I think we can agree on the fact that it would cost a hell of a lot to get him here. Some of you don't give a shit. I don't care. Make it happen. That's fine. I'm not here to argue about that because I don't think it's going to happen anyway. What I did say, however, that ruffled a few feathers was that I didn't think that Lamar Jackson would be able to come here and maximize the talent that we have, because he has been so prone over the life of his career to throwing to the running backs and specifically the tight ends, in that offense in Baltimore, and receivers not wanting to come to Baltimore, not because of Lamar Jackson, but just because of the offense that they ran. And he's never really taken a receiver and elevated his game. You would think with his talent and the ability for him to scramble and what teams have to deal with knowing that he's a run threat, you would think that Lamar would have been able to elevate at least a receiver during his career there to heights that receiver probably would not experience with another quarterback. That hasn't taken place, which is a bit concerning for me. Now, I've seen Hollywood Brown drop his fair share of balls. I've seen him, have opportunities to make big plays and just not. And that's not Lamar's fault. But I've seen Lamar miss some open receivers as well. So it goes both ways. At the end of the day, Lamar hasn't been a guy that consistently is successful with receivers in his career. He's had consistent success with tight ends in particular. And thus, with us not having a great tight end room right now, with us having our strong suit be the receiver room, I didn't think it would make a lot of sense for Lamar to be here, to which a lot of you said, hey, Lamar can do it. He did it at Louisville. I mean, if we're talking about Louisville, you're talking about 5-6 years ago. I mean, what are we talking about? I mean, you got to go all the way back to Louisville. That's a problem for me. Now, the next argument was Greg Roman. It's Greg Roman. It's his offense. And, it's tight end heavy. It's running back heavy. We all know this to be a fact. We're going to talk about Greg Roman here in a second because he's now available. And I think he's going to become a hot commodity for some teams, including a team here in Washington. I don't know if we're interested, but we're going to talk about him. But Greg Roman's offense, wherever it goes, it succeeds. That's why I think there's this dilemma when you're talking about Greg Roman, because wherever he goes, winning follows. I talked about this on the podcast. There's a certain number of guys. It's a small group of coaches in this league that when they travel, wherever they go, winning follows them. They have the formula. It is very successful. And you can travel with this formula and it works. And Greg Roman is one of those guys. He did it in San Francisco with Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick. He did it in Buffalo when nobody was winning in Buffalo. He did it in Buffalo with Tyrod Taylor. He did it in, obviously, Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. So there's precedence that's been set, and success follows Greg Roman wherever he goes, and it's a timeless formula. Now, it has not won a Super Bowl. Has not won a Super Bowl. As a matter of fact, the running joke in Baltimore is that it was Greg Roman's offense that won John Harbaugh and the Ravens their only Super Bowl together. Obviously they won back in 2001 or whatever it was, 2000, excuse me. But obviously that wasn't John Harbaugh. That was Brian Billick. But Harbaugh, as the head coach, his lone Super Bowl came when Greg Roman was the offensive coordinator in San Francisco. And it was that stretch down by the end zone where they threw it a bunch and failed to get in that landed the Ravens their Super Bowl in 2012. So that's the running joke is you got Greg Roman to thank for the Super Bowl that you did win if you're John Harbaugh. But that's nor here nor there. I say this because a lot of people are putting Lamar Jackson's inability to have success with the receivers on Greg Roman and his offense. And to that, I say, touche. I'm not going to disagree with you. A huge part of why Lamar was so tight end dependent is because Greg Roman's offense is very tight end dependent. It's made for the offensive line, the running backs, and the tight ends to eat and eat well. Okay. And thus, receivers in this league aren't, chomping at the bit to go play in a Greg Roman system because it just doesn't. And we've seen this go all the way back to the 49ers days, when they had Michael Crabtree. Vernon Davis was more the star of that offense as a pass catcher than Michael Crabtree was. Okay. You go to Buffalo. And it's Samuel Watkins was the young budding star at the receiver position, and he wasn't eating the way that you would think he would have been eating because that's just not how that offense is set up. You move on to Baltimore, and we know the success the tight ends have had in Baltimore over the years, how much draft capital that they spent. They spent a first-round pick, I think a second-round pick on Max Williams. They spent a first-round pick on Hayden Hurst. They spent a third-round pick on the guy that is tearing the league up right now in Mark Andrews. They spent a pick on Nick Boyle, if I'm not mistaken. Nick Boyle was a draft pick. They've spent now they just spent a second-round pick on Isaiah Likely. They've continued to invest resources into the tight end position because it's such a big part of what they do in Baltimore. They haven't necessarily done that at the receiver position. It's not for a lack of trying it. Hollywood Brown was a first-round pick. Rashad Bateman is a first-round pick. They spent a second-round pick on the Notre Dame wide receiver. I don't think he was a first-round pick. I think he was a second-round pick. But they spent some draft capital on receiver, and they spent a bunch of third-round picks on guys, whether it's James Prochet or Devin Duvernay. I don't know if it's third or fourth, but they're in that mix. They've spent draft capital, is what I'm trying to tell you, at receiver, and it just, for whatever reason, none of these guys have taken it. And I think the easiest correlation to make is it's Greg Roman's offense, which is fine. I'm willing to listen. My stance remains unchanged. If Lamar were available, hypothetically, because I don't think he is available, don't think the Ravens are looking to trade him at this current juncture. Now, things could still go off the rails with them. They could literally sit down with Lamar for 6 hours next week and come out of the meeting saying, this guy is unreasonable. We got to do something. We're not out of the woods yet. This situation is far from done, okay? And they may still elect to trade him. So I don't want to, blow the firing or the mutual parting of ways of Greg Roman with the Ravens organization as a sign that Lamar Jackson is definitely back. Because, again, that situation can still go off the rails. There are a lot of hurt feelings in this situation. And Lamar can sit down and say, here's my number. You can either meet it or you can trade me. And I don't want to play under the franchise tag. And they can say, come on, Lamar, you got to work with us. He's like, I'm working for me. Just like y'all work for y'all, I'm working for me. And this is what I want, which is why agents are so important, because they're the buffer. A lot of crazy shit gets said when you're trying to negotiate. If you've never been in a negotiation before, it's not pretty, okay? A lot of actual factuals are thrown out there, and then a lot of shit that probably shouldn't be said for a guy that you're trying to sign long-term, you shouldn't be saying, but that guy's never supposed to hear that because the agent is taking care of that. But if I'm negotiating with you, the player, now you got to hear the shit. Anyway, hypothetically speaking, let's say Lamar Jackson is available. I don't want to be the guinea pig to find out if, in fact, it was Greg Roman's offense that was holding him back as a passer and wide receivers couldn't eat in Baltimore. I don't want to be the reason. I don't want to be the guinea pig to figure that out after paying him $50 million a year, forking over a couple of first-round draft picks, and probably one of your defensive linemen. I don't want to give up all that stuff, pay him all that money to find out here that it wasn't Greg Roman. And maybe it was Roman, and he comes here, and Terry's got 1,700 yards receiving, and Jahan Dotson got 1,100 yards, and Curtis Samuel's got 927, and the offense is thriving and budding. Yeah, then, yeah, that'd be awesome, right? But what if it wasn't just because of Greg Roman? What if Lamar Jackson was instrumental in that as well? What if Lamar Jackson, the last 2 years, who hasn't finished the season, what if he comes here and can't finish the season? What if he gets hurt? These are all things that you should be aware of. These are all things that should be concerning to you. And just remember what we've been here. Our track record is not good with players who have been injured elsewhere coming here to Washington. Guys don't magically get healthier when they come to Washington. If you've got a track record of being banged up, and now Lamar has a track record. It wasn't that way for the first 4 years of his career, okay? But now, after this year and the previous year of him not finishing the season, he's got a track record. What makes you think he's going to show up here and all of a sudden be healthy and play 17 straight games? Because if you've got a history of getting injured, then when you get here, you're going to get injured. We've seen that movie over and over and over and over again. So I said all of that to say this, and I thought there were some really good arguments in the comment section of the podcast episode from Wednesday where I talked about Lamar Jackson and why I wouldn't want him here in Washington. And I saw them. I responded to a couple of them. I love it. But I remain resolute in my stance. I don't want to give up what it's going to cost. I don't want to be a guinea pig to find out if he can stay healthy, one, and two, if he can maximize these receivers. I'm not interested. I'm not interested. Let that be Miami's problem. Let that be, Atlanta's problem or somewhere else. Now, speaking of Greg Roman, let's get to that elephant in the room. So Greg Roman and the Ravens agreed to mutually part ways. He's going to be a hot commodity on these streets. And I'm just telling you right now, I want no parts of Greg Roman. And here's what you really have to decide. If you're a Washington fan, how much does winning matter to you? How much does it matter? If you say, I want to win by any means necessary, go get Greg Roman. You'll win. We'll win next season because he'll come in here. He'll help you fortify the offensive line. He'll beef up the tight end room. He'll maximize Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson. Those guys will eat and eat well. Hearty. But understand that I've said this countless times. I mean this when I say it. The strength of our offense is the wide receiver room. You bring in Greg Roman, those dudes are essentially dead. Okay? Terry getting the 900 yards every year despite playing with 10 different quarterbacks, yada, yada, yada. That's in jeopardy. And Terry's trending upward. His numbers are climbing every single year. Next year, he's probably going to hit 1,200 yards receiving, no matter who the quarterback is. Unless Greg Roman is the offensive coordinator. In that case, that's in jeopardy. Jahan Dotson is ascending. We think that this guy's a budding star, potentially in this league. That star quickly explodes and goes away if Greg Roman comes here. Now, again, you're going to win more likely than not. So are you willing to sacrifice what we've tried to build, what we've attempted to build, all in the name of chasing after winning? Now, Roman does not have the track record of winning Super Bowls. He's gotten to one, though. But with Sam Howell's skill set, Greg Roman's track record, and the resources that we have to beef up the offensive line and potentially add some tight ends, Roman can turn this shit around quickly. But at what cost? Your receivers are essentially non-fat. You just paid Terry an extension to be the guy, and all of a sudden he would be a decoy. He would be a blocking wide receiver. You just spent a first-round pick on Jahan Dotson, and he could be an afterthought. I think he would find some use for Curtis Samuel, however. But at the end of the day, if you're more fixated on winning, Greg Roman is probably the offensive coordinator for you. If you don't care how it gets done, you just want it to be done, Greg Roman will get it done for you. He's proven that. I mean, he did it with Tyrod Taylor in Buffalo, dude. He can do it with Sam Howell. But at what cost? He's interesting. If you're Washington, you should be interested. If I'm Greg Roman, I don't think I'm interested, however. Again, he's going to have options. I think the perfect place for him would be the Jets, honestly speaking. Why? Because they've already got 77 tight ends. Like, they beefed up the tight end position last year. They went OC on the position last year. They've spent resources on that offensive line. They've got a mauler at left tackle in Mekhi Becton coming off of an injury. They spent a first-round pick on a guard 2 years ago. Like, they're ready. If you put the pieces together, and they drafted a second-round running back that'll be coming off of an injury who looks the part of a stud. They've got at least 3 or 4 quality backs on their roster. The Jets look poised. He might be able to take Zach Wilson and turn him into just like we thought Alex Smith was a bust. He got his hands on Alex Smith, and he took Alex Smith all the way to the NFC Championship game. He might be able to do the same thing for Zach Wilson's stinking ass. I'd go to New York if I were Greg Roman. That's my next reclamation project. You get it done there, and he may be in serious consideration for a head coaching job because most people have left Zach Wilson for dead. I wouldn't come to Washington. I wouldn't do it. Speaking of coming to Washington, it leads me to my next discussion. Okay. So I've seen a lot of chatter. I told you I've seen a lot from Washington fans, and a lot of people are opinionated. Okay. Don't want this guy. I'm guilty. I'm right in that same mix. I'm not absolving myself. I'm not separating myself. I've been very opinionated as well. But I also have been in that, wait and see approach mode. Like, okay, let me see what they're going to do. So I made the comment on the command post the other day that, Washington had all these interviews lined up, all these guys that they wanted to talk to. Darrell Bevel, who has, recently turned down the Jets and Commanders. I don't blame him for doing that, but you're Darrell Bevel. I didn't want your ass anyway, but I'm glad he thinks highly enough of himself that he felt like he could turn down these interviews and be like, I'm good. I'm going back to Miami. Cool. I think it speaks to the climate right now that exists in the NFL, where if you feel like, hey, I got options, I'll just go back where I was at. I really don't love the options that are out there for me right now. And I was talking to a buddy of mine earlier today, and I said, the options aren't all that great this year, especially the head coaching options. Like last year, there were some really good opportunities that existed, man. That would have been the year for Sean Payton to be like, yo, I'm taking all bidders. Who wants in on the Sean Payton business right now? I mean, there was Minnesota, there was Jacksonville, there was Denver. I mean, I think we talked about one more job that was open. That was a really good job last year. There was a lot of really quality openings last season. That's not the case this year. So it's a lot of crap job openings. Carolina and Houston and Indy. No, even Arizona with Kyler Murray coming off of an ACL that isn't even appealing right now. It's a lot of shitty jobs available, which is why a guy like Ben Johnson is like, nah, I'm good. I'm going to go back to Detroit. Thanks, but no thanks. I don't blame him. I'm not mad at him, but I'm not glad at him either. But what I've been trying to convey to Washington fans is this. Understand who you are. We're Washington, okay? Not the Redskins of the 80s, not the Redskins of the early 90s. Hell, not even the Redskins of the late 90s into the early 2000s. There is zero respect for this organization. And you've got a coach that could potentially be going into a lame duck season with new ownership coming in. He's on thin ice. He's literally on a probationary period, is Ron Rivera. The minute new ownership takes over, his probation period begins. And if he misses one meeting, he's fired. Okay? So understand that if I have options, if I think I'm young and talented, I'm not coming to Washington. I'm not putting my family through that. I'm not uprooting my family, moving for potentially a year, and then having to look for work next year. Not doing that. Which I get. What I've been trying to explain to people is that whomever we hire, he's going to be flawed. You're not getting a young, budding star candidate here in Washington. You're not going to get someone's really dynamic and creative passing game coordinator who's never been an offensive coordinator in the league looking for his first shot. You're not going to get someone's really innovative quarterbacks coach. Maybe Charles London is that. I don't know. I'm not salivating over the prospects of having our offense look anything like the one the Falcons ran last season. They did do some interesting things, however, but none of it really led to them throwing the football. Now, did it? Not really looking forward to that. But who am I to say? Charles London may have tons of ideas on how you can take that run game and manipulate it to help you throw the football effectively. I don't know that. We've never seen this man as an offensive coordinator, so we can't tell. We'll get a glimpse of him. He's going to lead the one of the teams in the Senior Bowl as the coordinator. We'll get a sense. I mean, it's the Senior Bowl. Like, I mean, how much can you put in a week, right? However, he's interesting, but I don't think he's a needle mover. At the end of the day, I've been very, I feel like, clear and very concise with the message that I've been trying to convey to you all, which is we're going to end up with a veteran retread play caller. And in doing so, he's going to be flawed in some way, shape, or form. He would have been fired once, twice, maybe even thrice, okay? He is going to have fan bases that will tell you, don't hire this guy, he sucks. If you've been fired once, you've got at least one fan base saying, this guy sucks. If he's been fired twice, you've got at least one fan base saying, don't hire this guy, he sucks. If he's been fired 3 times, then you know there's at least one fan base, possibly 2, maybe all 3, screaming the same thing. Don't go anywhere near that guy, he sucks. That's what we're going to end up hiring. Some guy that has been fired multiple times, that is flawed, that sucks. Maybe he sucks. Maybe he sucked there, but he doesn't suck here. That's the pool that we're swimming in. Understand that. So when I say I want Pat Shurmur, the Shurmurnator, as I like to call him, the Shurmurnator, I'm going to defend Pat Shurmur because is he the end-all, be-all offensive coordinator? If we were in a position of power, would I be aiming my dart at Pat Shurmur? Hell no. Get away from my dartboard, Pat Shurmur. I've got better targets to throw at. But guess what? I know my role. I'm going to shut my mouth and I'm going to take these candidates that I know are going to be willing to take this job, and that's who I'm aiming my darts at. And I much rather have Pat Shurmur here than Darrell Bevell. And I can't tell you how many Darrell Bevels, we need to get Darrell Bevels I've seen. And I'm like, what? Over Pat Shurmur? And you know what I keep hearing about Pat Shurmur? Oh, did you see what he did in Denver? They were terrible. Jerry Jeudy didn't even have any touchdown catches. He was awful in Denver. Then people want to throw out, he was ranked 25th and he was ranked 27th in this and this, that, and the third. They were awful on offense. Okay. That's the latest in a long line of stops for Pat Shurmur, which is why he was out of football last year. It's easy to go to his last stop. It's the most recent. Recency bias checks in. I don't have a problem with it, but let me set the record straight. Let the record reflect what Pat Shurmur has done in his career. Okay? Which is why I defend the Shurmurnator. Okay? Because Pat Shurmur has been successful when he's been given talent at the quarterback position. So I'll go down the timeline for you, for those of you who want to run Pat Shurmur out of here, because of all the guys that they've interviewed to this point, and they'll interview more, and we'll see, maybe somehow the offensive coordinator pool warms up even more. I think this is as warm as it's going to get. Okay. Still a little chilly. Still a little chilly for me. All right. But this might be as warm as it's going to get. And if that's the case, I'll take Pat. Pat started out in Philadelphia. We've gone through this already. He was the tight ends coach. All right. He was working with the offensive line. In 2002, he moved from tight ends coach / offensive line assistant to quarterbacks coach, where then Donovan McNabb took a massive leap from a scrambling quarterback with, the ability to make something happen with his arm to legit pocket passer. And in 2004, Donovan McNabb, under Pat Shurmur's tutelage, had the best career season of his career. Completion percentage-wise, touchdown passes, yards. They went to the Super Bowl. Okay. Then Pat Shurmur moves on. And he says, all right, new challenge. I'm going to go to St. Louis, and I'm going to coach a rookie quarterback in Sam Bradford. The Rams were 1-15 before Shurmur got there as the offensive coordinator. First opportunity as a play caller in this league. He goes to the St. Louis Rams, and Sam Bradford has the best year. Well, he had a tremendous rookie season, set a bunch of franchise records for the Rams organization for a rookie quarterback. And they went from 1-15 to 7-9, and Sam Bradford was, you could argue, one of the best rookie quarterbacks that the league had seen in a while. And we know his career did not continue on that trajectory. He had one really good season in Minnesota and a semi-solid season in Philadelphia, and that was it. He really stole money. A lot of people feel like Sam Bradford stole money. He wasn't stealing in that rookie season under Pat Shurmur, one of his better seasons of his career. You go on to that situation kind of blowing up, and he gets out of there. He goes to Philadelphia with the chipster, Chip Kelly, right? Back to Philadelphia. He'd been there before. This time, he's actually the offensive coordinator. It wasn't the first time he was a quarterback's coach. This time, under the chipster, he's the offensive coordinator. Nicholas Foles, under his tutelage, under that offense, he called 27 touchdowns, 2, count them, 1, 2 interceptions. We all know Nicholas Foles ain't 27 over 2, okay? Which is why that Super Bowl run in 2017 was so out of nowhere, because we all saw Nicholas Foles. He went to hell in a handbasket after 27-2. Shurmur was no longer there, right? Shurmur then goes to Minnesota. Okay? So, just so we're clear, McNabb, best year of his career under Shurmur. Sam Bradford, one of his best years of his career as a rookie under Shurmur. Nicholas Foles, best year of his career as a starter. By far and away, not even close, under Shurmur. We now go to Pat Shurmur, already in progress, in Minnesota. What do you know? 2017, Minneapolis Miracle. Do you remember who the quarterback of that team was in 2017? Let me remind you, because you've seen this guy firsthand and you know he stinks. Case mother effing Keenum has the Vikings within one game of the Super Bowl. Who do you think is the mastermind of Case Keenum's best season of his career? Not even remotely close. I'll give you a second. The Shurmurnator. That's who. Okay? Now, you want to talk about failures? We can talk about those. I'm not going to leave that out. I'm going to give you the entire picture here, okay? But I had somebody in the comment section say, hey, he failed with Daniel Jones and Drew Lock. Hold on a second there. 2019, they lost a lot of games, and he got fired, did Pat Shurmur. I don't think he's the head coach, first and foremost, okay? I don't think he's – and we've had this discussion. Everybody's not made to be the head guy. That's okay. Some coaches are made to be coordinators. Pat Shurmur is one of them, okay? So, in 2019, he had already been there 18. They were not successful, okay? They drafted Daniel Jones in 2019. Eli Manning started the season out. Then, if you recall, Eli gets benched. And really, Eli was only there that last year, really, as a tutor, a mentor to Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones grew up with the Mannings. He was at their camps. Their temperament is very similar. And so Eli wanted to be there to pass that baton. Pat Shurmur was the head coach. I talked about what he did for Sam Bradford as a rookie. What do you know? Daniel Jones. You can say what you want about the fumbles, all that shit. It's well documented. He fumbled a lot in his rookie season. You know what else he did a lot of in his rookie season? Touchdown passes. Yards. Set Giants records in a ton of categories. Daniel Jones has not even come close to approaching the 24 touchdown passes he had in his rookie season under Pat Shurmur. Up until this season, the 3,000 and some odd yards that he threw for in his rookie season was the best in his career, and it wasn't close. He just eclipsed that this season, but 15 touchdowns over 5 interceptions, not the 24 touchdown passes that he had in his rookie season. Now, he had 12 interceptions. The interceptions are going to come as a rookie. But 24 touchdown passes? It's guys in the league that have been in the league 5, 6, 7 years haven't thrown 24 touchdown passes in a season. Don't tell me he failed Daniel Jones. We all thought, where do you think Danny Dimes' nickname came from? It came from that 2019 season. You should know. He threw 5 touchdown passes against us in the Chase Bowl. Beat us in overtime. 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. That was Pat Shurmur. So miss me with Pat Shurmur can't get it done. You want to talk about failures for Pat Shurmur? I'll give you the list of failures. He failed in Cleveland. He was the head coach. I don't think he's a good head coach. He failed. They brought him there because of all the success he had to that point with Sam Bradford in particular as a rookie. They drafted Colt McCoy in the 3rd round, did the Browns, and they wanted Pat Shurmur to work a miracle. We all know Colt McCoy ain't that dude. But at that time, he was coming out of Texas. He had this rich, college career, and they really thought he could be successful in the NFL as a starter. So they wanted Pat to take his skill set, build an offense around it, and make him successful in Cleveland. It didn't happen. They ended up drafting Brandon Weeden in the 1st round in 2012 once they realized Colt McCoy, who was drafted in the 3rd round of 2010, wasn't the answer. They gave him one more opportunity, this time with Brandon Weeden in 2012. He failed with Brandon Weeden. Again, Brandon Weeden, not a good NFL quarterback. Colt McCoy, a career backup. Okay, fine. If you want to stamp your claim that Pat Shurmur sucks on that, knock yourself out. How about Drew Lock? Sucked with him in Denver. That's his last stop. That's all everybody wants to talk about. Hey, knock it. Drew Lock went to Seattle and didn't see the field. Drew Lock has played for 3 coaches. All of them have come to the same conclusion. He sucks ass. I was a Drew Lock fan coming out of Missouri. I thought this kid could be a star in this league. I was wrong. Some guys just don't have it. And I think Drew Lock is one of those guys. Every player that Pat Shurmur has gotten his hands on at the quarterback position and has had some talent, he's gotten the most out of it, and he's made that guy a good football player. I look at Sam Howell, I look at his skill set, I look at the receivers we have, and I say to myself, why can't we have success with Pat Shurmur taking a young quarterback that's impressionable, that's ready to explode potentially with the weapons that we have? Why can't Sam Howell have a Case Keenum type season? The best of his career. Why can't he have a Nicholas Foles type best of his career season here? Why can't he take Sam Howell and do what he did for Donovan McNabb for Sam Howell? Why not? Why can't he take what he did for Daniel Jones in his rookie season and do it for a second season Sam Howell? All anybody wants to talk about is, oh, he stunk in Denver. What, are you ignoring everything else he's done? Because as far as I'm concerned, the man gets results with quarterbacks, which is all I'm concerned about at this point. Is Sam Howell legit or not? Have we found a quarterback? That's what it's all about for me. All this extra shit is cool. It's fine. It's dandy. Is Sam Howell the answer or not? Because if he's not and Ron gets canned, I need to know that we need to hit the complete reset button. New GM, new coach, new quarterback. Let's figure the shit out. If Sam Howell is a part of the solution and not the problem, let's find that out. I think Pat Shurmur can help us figure that out. Even if Ron is not the man for the job, we may still be saying, hey, but Sam can stay. Sam can stay. So for those out there telling you Pat Shurmur stinks, yeah, the Denver Broncos fan base is telling anybody that comes close, don't get him. He's garbage. If you talk to any Washington fan about Scott Turner, we'll try to talk you off the ledge. Hey, don't do that shit. Hey, there are better options out there. Don't do it. Come talk to me about Scott Turner. I'll give you the reels. I'm not in my feelings. You can decide if you want to deal with the shit we dealt with, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you Scott Turner's the absolute worst. That's what fans like to do. They go to extremes. He's the absolute worst. He's terrible. I'm not going to tell you that about Scott Turner. I'm going to give you the reels. I'm going to tell you why he can be successful and why he more likely than not won't be. But I'll let you decide. Maybe your team fits what he likes to do, and he can have some success. It didn't work here. I think Pat Shurmur would be really good for this team, personally. And we can make much worse decisions. Again, is Pat Shurmur flawed? Yes, he is. Absolutely. If there were better options available, I would go in that direction. But we don't have a lot of options. Understand the pool that we're picking from. Humble yourself and understand what position we're in. Okay? We got basic ass pass game coordinators telling us, nah, I'm good. Thanks, but no thanks. I'm a pass. Bro, you basic as hell. How dare you? You not 37. You not 41. You 53 damn years old. That's where we at with ours, though. That's why I look at a Pat Shurmur and I said, Pat not only wants this job, I think he could thrive in this job. Again, you don't have to agree with me, and that's fine. That's why I like these discussions. But I'm just telling you, the track record speaks for itself. He's got more successes with quarterbacks in this league that haven't been overly talented either. We're talking about Sam Bradford and Case Keenum. We're not talking about the elites. Nicholas Foles, he's doing work with backups, essentially. We got a guy that we think has the potential to be a legitimate starter in this league. I'd love to see what he could do with him. With the weapons that we have, I get it. The Broncos had weapons. They also had Drew Lock. That makes a hell of a difference. I swear it does. Anyway, I digress. I just wanted to bring that up. I wanted to defend Pat Shurmur, a.k.a. the Shurmurnator. All right. So now I want to get into one more thing. And it's the Taylor Heinicke dilemma. So I was having a conversation with my guy, Derek B. And I thought about this. Probably not to the extent that my guy, Derek B. was thinking about it. But I thought about this before because I think you have to think about every single avenue when bringing back, because if we've had this conversation about quarterbacks and how fragile the psyche is of a young quarterback. You don't want that guy looking over his shoulder, which is why Ron, tried to create an environment last season where guys didn't have to worry about getting benched. And I understand what he was trying to do, but Carson shouldn't have been able to lean on that protection. He hadn't earned that right. He was 2-4. And the last time we saw him, he had one of the worst games we had seen a Washington quarterback have in a win in a very long time. And he hadn't been good to start the season off before he injured himself. And Heinicke had come in and done nothing essentially but win. And he had hit, a little bit of a rough patch there, which is what got him benched. And they were looking for a spark. And if the minute you got wind of the fact that spark wasn't going to be ignited, get his ass out of there. I thought that they stuck with Carson far too long. We saw the end result there. However, the quarterback mind is fragile when you're not assured of yourself, which Sam Howell probably isn't quite yet because he's a young guy. He's going into the second year of his career. He's got one career start under his belt. So he can't be too sure of himself. There may be a little bit of athletic arrogance there, which is what you want. But if he's got a guy behind him that he feels threatened by, that's not a good thing, which is why my guy, Derek B, sent me this message, and I want to talk to you guys about it and see how you feel. So Derek B hit me with this, what is it now? 10 days ago. He says, if Howell or a rookie quarterback struggles, he says, now this is before Scott Turner got fired. So maybe his mind has shifted away from this way of thinking now that Scott Turner is no longer here. But I think it still applies personally. He says, if Howell or a rookie quarterback struggles, Ron and Scott's dumbasses will pull the Heinicke trigger. Plus the second one of the young guys throws a pick and we'll have to deal with the Heinicke chance. We have to move on from Taylor and Scott if we're going to have any chance next season. If it were me, I would fire Ron tonight and immediately call Ben Johnson's representative first thing in the AM. Well, Ben Johnson, again, first of all, that was a flawed, that the ending of that statement was flawed because Ben Johnson is already an offensive coordinator. The Lions aren't going to allow you to interview Ben Johnson for a lateral move. Okay, they can block you. And Ben Johnson wasn't leaving Detroit to come and be the offensive coordinator in Washington. So it had to be. Now, he was saying fire Ron and offer him an opportunity to be the head coach, which, again, flawed thinking, because if new ownership is coming in there, you're on the same boat as Ron. You're literally on probation the minute the new ownership takes over. You're now on a probationary period, and all you got is one mess up and you're fired. So if I were Ben Johnson, I wouldn't be interested, but I knew where he was going with that. But that's burying the lead. Okay, the lead there was Taylor Heinicke, and how if you really want to clear the path for Sam Howell without any repercussions for mistakes, without any pressure from fans, because we've already seen this. The Heinicke hive is real, okay? Sam Howell goes out there and he struggles early in the season next year at home. What's to stop the fan base from doing exactly what Derek B said? Chanting Heinicke, like they did in week number 17 against the Browns, when they were booing Carson Wentz and chanting for Taylor Heinicke after the first play of the game. Look, I don't blame them. The first throw of the game for Wentz was a pick. But who wants to deal with that? I definitely don't want my young second-year quarterback having to deal with that shit. So there is a bit of that. Now, I'm pretty sure you asked, Sam Howell if he would mind Heinicke being, he probably wouldn't. Heinicke was the reason he even got the start. If it wasn't for Taylor Heinicke, he wouldn't have started. He would have gotten some plays, maybe a possession here or there. But the plan was to start Heinicke, and Heinicke was like, bro, come on, man. Start Sam. What are you doing? So I do think there is a bit of merit to that. Maybe a little bit less now that Scott's no longer here. But there is enough of the fan base that is enamored with Taylor Heinicke that if you kept him around and Sam Howell goes through a bit of a, period where he struggles a bit, I do think there are enough fans that are at the game in particular that would be screaming for Taylor Heinicke. The pressure wouldn't mount. And again, if it's Jacoby Brissett, nobody's beating down Ron's door demanding to speak with him as to what's going on at the quarterback position and should you go to Jacoby Brissett? Hell no. We know what that movie looks like. We're done. And that's not homegrown product. Taylor Heinicke is homegrown product that we've had a chance to, embrace. And for some of you, it's turned into a bromance and you don't want to let go. And that's fine. But most of us know what Heinicke is. So we don't need to see him in a starting capacity. But there's still enough fans to think that this guy can start. And thus, they'd like to see him get an opportunity. And if Howell got the opportunity and he struggled to start the season off, you'd have some people saying, put Heinicke in. He'll save the day like he always does. Put Heinicke in. You want to avoid that? Maybe Heinicke shouldn't be here. I do think there's a dilemma there. And I've already said, I'm on board with Heinicke being my backup quarterback because I already know when he comes in the game, something's going to happen. Whether good or bad, something's going to happen. It won't be status quo. He won't just come in and try to manage the game. He's going to come in here and he's going to throw some shit around. And either he's going to get picked off or he's going to throw a touchdown pass or he's going to make something, but he's going to make something happen. Can't necessarily say that for Jacoby Brissett. He's as mad as it gets as a backup. 19 of 31 for 147 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, didn't really impact the game all that much. That ain't Taylor Heinicke, okay? There's going to be a crooked number in one of those two boxes. He's either going to throw a touchdown or he's going to throw a pick. Something's going to happen, though. Or both. I think it's an interesting discussion. They have to do something at backup quarterback currently on the roster right now once they release Carson Wentz, because that is going to happen. I think there's still a small percentage of you, not a lot, but a small percentage of you out there that are worried about Wentz returning here and maybe going out and getting a guy like Frank Reich, who is very comfortable with Wentz's skill set, and bringing him here to make Wentz more comfortable. I don't see that happening. I don't. They're done with Carson Wentz. They're so disappointed in how last season turned out. Week 17 was Wentz's final salvo. That was his final opportunity to salvage his NFL career and prove somebody who believed in him right. He failed Frank Reich in Indianapolis, and he failed Doug Peterson in Philadelphia, and thus Ron was the last guy that believed in him. And this was his opportunity to say, you know what? You believed in me. I'm going to reward you. Ron gave him an opportunity to prove Ron right and to make everybody out there that were naysayers look like fools. And instead, he turned around and did the thing that he's always done, which is embarrass the guy that has put faith in him blindly. And so he's done. They have no interest in retaining Carson Wentz, especially at the number that will come attached to him next season. He's done. The only quarterback currently on the roster, we're in the same spot we were in a year ago with Heinicke, when we had nobody else on the roster but Heinicke after Kyle Allen was gone and Alex Smith was gone. It was just Taylor Heinicke. They went out and got, I think they went out and got Ryan Fitzpatrick and ended up getting a young quarterback that they at the end of the roster, but that was it. It was really just him and Ryan Fitzpatrick after they went and signed Fitz. We're in that same spot with Sam Howell. It's literally just Sam Howell on the roster. They got to do something. Either you're bringing Heinicke back, or you got to go out and get a veteran, backup, or you can take a late round flyer on a quarterback. That never hurts. As a matter of fact, I'd recommend that you do that. It worked for the 49ers. Look, that's not the norm. That's not the standard. They're the exception to the rule. Taking a 7th round flyer on a quarterback usually does not result in any dividends being gained. It's just a 7th round pick that you threw a dart at. And usually those don't stick. But there's nothing wrong with doing that. We'll see what they decide to do. Bottom line is, there is a dilemma there. I do think that does exist. You keep Heinicke around, and I do think there is a little bit of breath on Sam Howell's neck. Just a little. Look, if you're a realist, you watch Heinicke and you're like, bro, he's a backup. Why are we having this discussion? But it's enough people out there that can't come to grips with the fact that Heinicke is a backup quarterback. They've convinced themselves otherwise. And at first moment's notice, at first struggle with Sam, when the first adversity hits, they're ready to flip on him and put in their guy. We'll see what they decide to do. I digress. So let's get to the comment section, see if you guys have anything to say. If not, we'll get out of here. I've said everything that I've had to say. So see what you guys are talking about. Do we have any supers? Let's see. And we do. Oh, okay. I'm about to say we don't. I'm about to say, all right. We'll get out of here then. Got a super chat here from 8 Taco Bell. Now my stomach hurts. I remember, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if that was luck. Somebody had 8 Taco Bell, and I said, hey, man, be careful with that shit. I'm trying to tell you, Taco Bell is not safe. It ain't safe. It ain't safe. It ain't safe. It ain't safe. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, hey, Lou, off topic, but you look at the all-time great coaches. Most, if not all, had their QB. Joe Gibbs had 3 and 3 rings. Imagine if he had one great one. I think that's part of the reason why so many people put Joe Gibbs on the Mount Trashmore of coaches. When you start, or if he's not on the Mount Trashmore, he's right on the outside, on the outskirts, looking in. But I think that's part of the reason why so many people, want to give Joe his flowers, and rightfully so, because nobody else was doing that. You look at Bill Walsh, one of the most innovative coaches in NFL history. He had Joe Montana, right? You look at Vince Lombardi, he had Bart Starr. When we talk about the greatest coaches of all time, Tom Landry, he had, Roger Staubach. Like, Chuck Noll had, Terry Bradshaw. Like, you're not winning in this league unless you got your guy. Bill Belichick, Tom Brady. Like, usually great coaches are synonymous with a great quarterback. That wasn't the case for Joe, which is why people rate him so high, because it's so hard to win a Super Bowl with one quarterback. Try doing it with 3 different quarterbacks. So absolutely, there's definitely a prevailing thought out there that Joe Gibbs is one of the best to do it because of how he did it, which is, again, going against the grain. It's not the norm. He's an outlier. I don't know if there's any other coach that has done what he's done, which is win 3 Super Bowls. First of all, there's not many coaches that have won 3 Super Bowls, let alone done it with 3 different quarterbacks. I don't know if there's a coach that's won 2 Super Bowls and done it with 2 different quarterbacks. Jimmy Johnson, Troy Aikman, you get where I'm going with this. When you talk about Hall of Fame coaches, best to ever do it, there's a quarterback that is tied to that guy. I don't know if there's a coach that's won 2 Super Bowls with 2. There probably is, 1 or 2 guys in the Hall of Fame that have won 2 Super Bowls with 2 different coaches, but nobody else has done it with 3. So anyway, I digress. Hazu, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Hazu writes, I do not like Shurmur. Drew Lock looked worse with Pat Shurmur than Rick Scandrello. Prepare for Terry McLaurin to be a fake sweep decoy every play. He did not utilize Philip Lindsay well. I'm worried. Again, if you want to base your Pat Shurmur decision off of Denver, go right ahead. I'm not dismissing what he did in Denver. Okay? He was not good in Denver. But I don't think – what has Philip Lindsay done since Denver? I'm just asking for a friend. What has Jerry Jeudy done? Has Jerry Jeudy been the receiver that we all thought he was going to be when he was the first-round pick in Denver? Some of that could be circumstance. Could be Pat Shurmur. Could be Drew Lock. Could be Russell Wilson. It could be Nathaniel Hackett. He could have just been a product of just tough circumstances with bad coordinators and quarterbacks that haven't taken advantage of his skill set. He's also been injured too. I've given you the reasons why I rock with Pat Shurmur. Is he flawed? You're damn right he's flawed. Every coach that we're going to consider for this offensive coordinator job is going to be flawed. Okay? This is not a highly sought after offensive coordinator position. Okay? It's not. So understand that it's slim pickings over here. So every candidate is either going to be brand new to the game or has got flaws and has been fired multiple times. You're going to have to pick from that litter. My pick is Pat Shurmur. Until you show me a better candidate, I'm rolling with Pat because the track record speaks for itself. You want to harp on Denver, knock yourself out. Again, that was the last place he's been. So I get it. But I point to Donovan McNabb, best season of his career. I point to Case Keenum, best season of his career. I point to Nicholas Foles, best season of his career. I point to all of the quarterbacks that he's touched. Daniel Jones, one of the best seasons of his career. If we're talking about as a passer, best season of his career. This is all on the watch of Pat Shurmur. So we'll see. And we could get him, and he could be absolutely horrid. And you could be right. I'm willing to roll the dice on him more so than these other dudes that I know aren't fully capable of the things that he's done in his career. That's all I'm saying. HTTR Carson. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Writes, what's good, Lou? Do you think Jahan's upside is greater than Terry's? I do. And let's get some company on your couch after Sunday. FTTB. I thought I would have some company already, honestly speaking. Hold on 1 second. All right. So I thought I would have company already, to be honest with you. Whether the Giants lost or the Cowboys lost or they both lost, I thought somebody would be joining us on the couch. But clearly, I knew the Vikings were going to have a chance to be upset. That didn't surprise me. And I knew Dallas would have a chance to win, but I thought one of the two would lose. I did not expect both to win. But anyway, do I think Jahan's upside is greater than that of Terry's? I do. I don't. That's a tough question to answer because Terry's continuing to get better every year, and I did not see this coming. I thought Terry would be a really good receiver, but I thought that he would have plateaued by now because, there's just certain things that Terry isn't capable of. Like Terry has zero wiggle. That's not his thing. But even with that said, in his first 2 years, Terry's run after the catch, if he just wasn't outrunning an angle, like just pure speed, he wasn't breaking any tackles. Now Terry's bouncing off of dudes. He's shedding arm tackles. So he's still getting run after the catch. It doesn't look like Jahan's run after the catch, but it's still, I don't give a shit at what it looks like. I just want it. And he's getting that now. We talked about Terry hands, and a lot of people like to harp on, Terry doesn't have natural hands, this, that, and the third. He don't drop shit. I shouldn't say that because he had a drop in that last game against that. He rarely drops the football. Jahan's had more drops, who is the more natural pass catcher, and yet he's the one with more drops thus far. That said, Jahan is the more natural wide receiver. I think we can all acknowledge that. You look at Jahan Dotson, he was made to play the wide receiver position. Some guys just look like this is what they're supposed to be doing. Jahan is one of those guys. Is his upside greater than that of Terry? I think so. I'd have to lean towards that being the case. His ability to go up and high point the football, like Terry isn't necessarily like a go up and get the football with my hands type of guy. Jahan can do that. Terry's more of a go up and cradle it with my body. Again, I don't give a shit how you do it. Just do it. And Terry's shown me the ability to do that. But Jahan seems like, again, a more natural receiver, capable of doing more damage after the catch. He just looks like his game is going to continue to age well, but there's something about Terry. One, he doesn't get injured. Knock on a little bit of wood. I probably shouldn't have even said that shit, but he's very, very available. We'll just say that is Terry. He doesn't catch, he doesn't drop the ball really at all. He's super reliable. And Terry's numbers have increased each and every single year. And I still don't think he's hit his plateau yet. I still don't think he's hit, all right, he's not getting any better. Just hope he stays at this level for the next 4 or 5 years. I still think he's ascending. He still doesn't have that breakout 1,300, 1,400 yard season as a receiver. And that's really a byproduct of the offense and the quarterbacks that he's been attached to in his short NFL career. So as much as I want to say that, Jahan is light years ahead of Terry, because at this moment, like if we're comparing the two as rookies, Jahan's light years ahead of Terry as to where Terry was at this point of his career. Remember, Terry was drafted in the 3rd round as a special teams demon that could also play receiver. And because we didn't have shit. Remember, we didn't have a damn thing when we drafted Terry. Ryan Grant was on the roster and guys like that. And Trey, whatever his name was. Those are the kind of receivers we had back in 2019. All right. Trey Quinn. All right. That's the kind of shit we were parading around. So Terry clearly went straight to the front of the line with the shit we were putting out on the field. They found out real quick he could play, but that wasn't the assumption, or else he wouldn't have been a third-round pick. So Jahan was a first-round pick for a reason. You understand what I'm saying? You know, his talent was greater than that of Terry coming into the league. The expectations for him are greater than that of Terry coming into the league, because Terry wasn't a first-round pick. He was a third-round pick. Jahan's a first-round pick. We're expecting big things of him. That said, he looks the part. So if you're comparing them at the points of their career where they, you know, were equals, Terry's first year, Jahan looks clearly the superior receiver, but Terry's in year 4, you know, 19, 20, 21, 22. So year 4 going into year 5. And I don't think he's plateaued yet. So we'll see. I think you're probably right. When it's all said and done, Jahan probably has the higher upside, but that doesn't mean he'll reach it. But we'll see. Let's see. Got a super chat here from 8 Taco Bell. Now my stomach hurts. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, why Howell look like a Minecraft character though? Does he to you? He does it to me. That's funny. I'm not a big Minecraft guy, but I know what they look like. That's funny though, because he could look like one of those Lego characters. But anyway, King of the North, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, was Taylor a practice squad in Minnesota when Shurmur was there? No. Because remember, I take that back. I think so, because if I'm not mistaken, Heinicke was in the 2017 draft and he went undrafted. And Scott Turner was not the offensive coordinator at the time. He was the quarterback's coach. And he was the only guy to go to Heinicke's pro day. And specifically with Heinicke as the target. So I think he might have been there. I think they may have overlapped in Minnesota. I think you may be onto something. I'm actually curious now. I'm going to look it up. I feel pretty confident that that was the case, that Taylor Heinicke was in the 2017 draft. If I recall, you know, trying to go back in the Old Dominion archives, I think 16 was his last year, and he was in the 17 draft. He went undrafted, and let's see. I could be wrong. See, he was undrafted in 2015, so no, I don't think they overlapped. He was undrafted in 2015. He was with the Vikings for 15 and 16. Shurmur was there, if I'm not mistaken, for 17, and I think he was there for 18. I think. Let's check and see. So no, I don't think they overlapped. Let me check right now, though, and see when Pat Shurmur left Minnesota. I think he stayed there one more year after Case Keenum had the big season. Let's see. No. So what happened was he got the head coaching job. After the job he did with Keenum, he became a hot commodity. He got a head coaching job with the Giants in 18. So he was one and done. So they never crossed paths. They were never in the same building with one another. So I thought there may have been overlapping there briefly, but no, there wasn't. That was almost a good pull by you. Bloodshot Sports, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Bloodshot Sports writes, for some reason, I think it's going to be Ken Zampese. Let's talk about that. So remember, on my list of candidates, I had Ken Zampese at, let me see what number he was at. Ken Zampese was at 6 on my list. I said there was this report out there that they were going to hire someone else from the outside. And that's all fine and dandy when you initially, decide to fire Scott Turner. You're thinking, hey, why wouldn't anybody want this job? We got Terry McLaurin, we got Jahan Dotson, we got Curtis Samuel, we got Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick and Brian Robinson Jr. Why wouldn't anybody want this job? But then you fail to realize that you're a lame duck coach. They may be one and done. You still don't have a quarterback that you know you can rely on. And so there's a lot of question marks. Offensive line isn't all that great either. Got to do some work there. And so when you start factoring all that stuff into the equation, becomes a, bottom tier job. And what initially was, hey, we want to hire from outside becomes, shit, we probably need to just go ahead and promote Ken and stop playing. Like this little pool that we over here swimming in isn't all that appealing right now. So I said, don't rule out Ken Zampese, which is why I put him on the list at 6. Don't rule out Ken Zampese. And they already interviewed Ken. So I think Ken's got a shot. And honestly, if you're just looking for continuity for the sake of having familiarity with the playbook and the concepts, then you just go to Ken Zampese. Honestly, if I were Ron, in the situation that I was in, that's probably what I would do. But you've been with Ken, for the last 3 years. You know what Ken's about. And if you feel strongly about Ken, then you give him an opportunity. If you don't, if you think Ken is in the perfect position, he's a teacher as a quarterback's coach, leave him there. Go get another guy and move on. But if you trust Ken Zampese in that role, and he's only had one other opportunity to be the guy, and that was in Cincinnati. If you trust Ken Zampese in that role, give him a shot. Because the one thing I would advocate for is continuing to build on what Sam Howell learned last season. I wasn't willing to risk that to keep Scott Turner around. That wasn't something that I even entertained. I'd rather him start all over from scratch than bring Scott Turner back. But there is something to be said about, all right, year 2, same offense. I don't have to worry about this offseason, learning new terminology, trying to digest the playbook. I can show up this offseason ready to go. Don't have to think, just go out and play. I can command the huddle. As soon as we get to, OTAs and minis, I'm commanding the huddle because I know the playbook already. I know the verbiage. I know where everybody's supposed to be. I don't have to, try to overload my brain with all these new concepts and new language and verbiage, things of that nature. So there is, something to be said about that, but I don't know what they'll decide to do, to be honest with you. John Perez, my guy JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, can we have a discussion on this fan base's hatred for Chase Young? It's ridiculous at this point. So hatred is a strong word. I don't think it's hatred. I think it's disappointment. Hatred is to the point where, they've gone too far. And look, I think what it's amounted to, look, those same fans that you think can't stand Chase Young would be, riding his coattails and holding his nuts for him if he went out and had a 15.5 sack season next year, forced 7 fumbles, and was just a total game wrecker. Same people that are calling for him to be traded, calling him a bust, and all kinds of silliness would be the same people that are like, this guy is awesome. I knew he could do it. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You wanted to trade this guy. You called him the B word several times, over and over for the last 2 years. However, it's disappointment. You know why? Because you look up at the Giants and you look at Kayvon Thibodeau and you're saying he looks like he's going to be a beast. He killed our ass, right? You look at the Cowboys and you're saying he's supposed to be what Micah Parsons is for them. He's supposed to be that for us. That's what Chase Young is. You spend the number 2 overall pick on an edge rusher, and that's what he's supposed to look like. He's supposed to look like Myles Garrett in Cleveland. He's supposed to be a total game wrecker. And what people are starting to come to the realization of is that he might just be Jadeveon Clowney. And that shit isn't worth the number 2 overall pick. And that scares people. He can stop the run. He'll get occasional pressure. He can be impactful, but I can spend a 3rd round pick on a dude that can do that shit. I don't need to spend the number 2 overall pick on a guy to do that. So the 1.5 sacks before he got injured in 2021 scared the hell out of people. I told everyone, and I was like, Chase, bro, understand what's going to come with the territory when you come back late in the season and you're not yourself yet. Because there was no way he was going to be himself coming back. You're never yourself that first year coming back from a major injury where you've had surgery. You're never yourself. It's the year after where you really start to get comfortable. He's going to take that brace off. He's going to be out there playing. He's not going to be thinking about the knee anymore. You get the explosion back. You get back to being your normal self. Now you can play ball. I'm hoping that that's him next year. That's what happened with Bosa, right? Okay. Bosa didn't, he jumped right in the next year, but it wasn't the same. And again, I always caution people, every injury is different. No 2 injuries are exactly the same. Bosa didn't, rupture his patella tendon. He didn't have all kinds of different CLs damaged. He just had a straight ACL. It was repaired. He came back the next year and he had 15.5 sacks or whatever. That's not what Chase Young just went through. That was not his ordeal. So it's a different situation. But now Chase doesn't have to worry about rehabbing in the offseason. He doesn't have to think about, man, can I get my legs stronger? All he has to do now is go out and work on his game. Get better as a pass rusher. You're hoping that he comes back with a tool belt full of weapons to use next season and blows up the league. That's what you're hoping. But there are fans that they're not satisfied. We live in a society, and I've already said this numerous times, we live in a society that are prisoners of the moment. They want instant gratification. I need it, and I need it now. And this is the problem when you're looking at somebody else's stuff and you're comparing it to your own. I said earlier, there's nothing worse than somebody looking at a guy in another situation and says, I want what he's having. Because that situation is totally different than the one that you're in. He got that money from a different organization who was able to break him off with whatever they paid him. Your organization may not be in the same financial position to do that. And it may not make sense for them to do what that organization did for that player for you. But you can't tell people certain things. And for our fans, they're looking over at Micah Parsons. They're looking at Kayvon Thibodeau. Like, man, I remember when our guy used to do that in his rookie season. They're looking at Parsons and saying, that guy's a 2-time All-Pro in his first 2 seasons. Our guy hasn't even come remotely close to doing what he's done. I want what that guy's doing. I want what they have. Well, that's how you get yourself caught up. Let's just hope Chase Young is the best version of Chase Young. If we can get that, we'll be just fine, because he didn't get the nickname the Predator for no reason, okay? Let's just hope he can get back to being what he was in his rookie season. If we can get that, we'll be just fine. Metaphor, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, I was late. Any talk of Leftwich, local guy to DC? Nope, I haven't talked about it. Let's talk about it then. So Leftwich got fired by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And again, I've been on Twitter. I've been on socials. I've been seeing, kind of checking the temperature of Commanders fandom. And we're all over the place, man. We don't know what the hell we want to do. We don't know if we want Roman. We don't know if we want Leftwich, if we want this guy, Bevel. We're all over the place. Fans don't, and a lot of these fans have no idea what these guys have done in their careers. None. They're just going off of what they did last. And the reason I said to Ben Johnson, ain't no guarantee they're going to love you next year, man. You get it while it's there to be got. You think you're going back to Detroit? Shit's sweet. You're just coming off of a 9-8 season in which Jared Goff was phenomenal, and you're the league's darling, story right now. Everything's awesome right now in Detroit. But what happens if Jared Goff flames out next season, or he gets injured and the Lions have a major regressive step backwards, and all of a sudden your stock ain't up no more? Your shit is plummeting. You had a chance to get a job, bro, and you blew it, right? That could happen. But Leftwich stock was never higher than winning the Super Bowl. You can't get any higher than winning the Super Bowl. His shit was through the roof. He could have took the Jacksonville job. What a story that would have been. Former first-round pick of the Jaguars returns home to try to fix a broken offense with a quarterback who probably he can relate to as a former first-round pick. What a story that would have been, right? But he didn't want to work with the GM. He wanted to be picky. And again, be picky. If you hot and you got it like that, be picky. And in Byron's mind, he's saying, I got Tom Brady. What's the worst that could happen? I got Tom Brady. No matter what I do, he's going to make me look good regardless. Oh, really? Regardless, you say, right? Leftwich was awful this season. Absolutely putrid this season. Their offense looked worse than ours did. And we had Taylor Heinicke and Carson Wentz under center. Not the greatest of all time, Tom Brady. They have weapons in Tampa Bay too. Don't let anyone fool you into thinking that, they don't have any weapons. Their offensive line was compromised. So was ours. And still, we looked like a more competent offense on most weeks than Tampa Bay. I watched every single Buccaneers game this season with the exception of Week 18 versus Atlanta, which they played Brady for a possession and then got him out of there. And once he got out of the game, so did I. I watched them all season long, and they struggled to scrape together 16 and 19 points on a weekly basis. Some weeks, not even making it to double digits. Shit, that sounds like us. I mean, we had a game where we scored 8. They had a game where they scored 6. So we had a game where we scored 12. We won. They had a game where they scored 12. They lost. There's no reason for their offense to look like ours for 17 games, but it did. We wanted Scott Turner gone, and our offense looked like garbage. And you want to bring in, and I'm not saying you in particular, I'm just people out there want leveler. Hey, set up an interview with him. Why? Why you want to set up an interview with him? I'm asking now. You can say, well, Louie T, you just said you'll take Pat Shurmur. His last situation wasn't good, and you're willing to overlook that. He's got a track record. Byron Leftwich's only track record is Tampa Bay with the greatest of all time, and he sucked for 2 out of 3 seasons as the coordinator. Well, I will call it 1. Because I feel like Bruce Arians still had a ton of control, but Bruce is a delegator. I think that first year, Bruce was like, I got it. No risk it, no biscuit. I got it. I thought the second year after they won the Super Bowl, Bruce was like, I'm going to let you have it because I want you to showcase your skill set to everybody and get the hell out of here and go get you a job. And then last year, Bruce was totally out of the mix. In comes Todd Bowles, and this was all Byron Leftwich's show. All his show. Todd Bowles wants nothing to do with the offense. He just wants to tell you on 4th and 4, and you got to punt. That's it. Todd Bowles don't want nothing else to do with the offense. He's worried about the defense. He's just like, hey, on 4th and 4, we punting the ball. No matter where we at on the field, we punting. Or field goal. and Byron Leftwich stunk it up. They had no run game. Did you watch the playoff game? They refused to run the football. Now, granted, offensive line isn't great. They probably weren't going to have too much success, but I can't stomach 1st and goal from the 3-yard line, and you throw 2 passes, one of which gets picked off. Not with the Cowboys' light-ass defense. I'm running the football 4 times if I have to. I'm daring that defense to stand up against these boys leaning on them for 4 straight plays. If they can do it, I tip my cap. I get it. Tom Brady, greatest of all time. Yes, that and the third. Tom wants to turn around and hand that bitch off. Trust me. Trust me. If that's going to be successful, Tom will do whatever it takes. Go back to the Super Bowl. Tom was handing that bitch off. He wasn't worried about stats. I'm doing whatever it takes to win. I don't want any parts of Byron Leftwich. If that's the best you can do with the greatest of all time, I shudder to think what you'll do with less talent in Washington. With an offensive line that we're still not sure of. They may try to revamp it over the offseason. We're not sure if it'll be any good. Is he going to just give up on Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson altogether and just put the game on the shoulders of Sam Howell? That's the shit we're trying to get away from. I'm not saying that I want Sam Howell to be, throwing it 19 times in a game, but I don't want him leading the league in completions. Tom Brady's 45 years old, and he led the NFL in completions. That means you absolutely quit on the run game. That's insane. I'm good. Thanks, but no thanks. Will Kavanaugh, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, sorry for the Jason Garrett question, LOL. You should be. You should be. It's okay. You didn't know any better. I will ask you what you think of Brian Griese from the Niners. I keep seeing his name pop up. So, obviously, former NFL quarterback. Smart guy, used to do the games as an analyst. Got an opportunity. Kyle Shanahan hit him up, said, hey, I'd love for you to come be my quarterback's coach. Jumped at the opportunity to get back in the game. He's taking it. You see what they're doing in San Francisco, right? Jimmy Garoppolo played well under him. Now you're getting a 7th-round pick coming in and playing really well. So, obviously, he deserves some credit for that quarterback room being as successful as it's been. So I do think that's a name that's starting to rise a bit. I don't know if he's ready for a coordinator job or not. Generally, guys like him, that are quarterbacks coaches, I prefer them to get an opportunity to be an OC where they are before they go out on their own. Case in point, Ken Dorsey, same story. College quarterback, gets to the NFL. Griese had a more successful NFL career, if you want to call it that. At least he was a starter. Ken Dorsey was really never that in the NFL, more of a career backup. Very brief period of time. And then he goes to the coaching ranks. Ken Dorsey is the quarterback's coach for the Buffalo Bills. He's there until Brian Daboll gets the job in New York with the Giants. He then elevates from quarterback's coach to offensive coordinator because he's comfortable in that system with those players, knows what everyone can do. And you see what he's doing. Now he's in the conversation. He just interviewed with the Carolina Panthers for their head coaching job. That's kind of how I'm more, wired with quarterbacks coaches. It's cool, to take one from somewhere and, give him an opportunity. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that with Brian Griese. I would be open to it if Griese was open to it. But if I'm Griese, I'm not coming to Washington. Again, this is a good situation that I got here in San Francisco. I'm living the life out here. It's either going to be Trey Lance or it's going to be Brock Purdy. I got Kyle Shanahan as my head coach who's also calling the plays. He's phenomenal. We're going to be successful. I'm going to have more opportunities to be an OC, whether it's here in San Francisco or it's elsewhere. I wouldn't be opposed to Brian Griese. I don't really know what his style is. Philosophically, I can't tell you what Brian Griese would come in here and do. Would he be a guy that is a stickler for running the football to set up play action, or would he be a lot of times with former quarterbacks, they want to throw the football. Okay. That's my general consensus watching the league for as long as I have. generally speaking. And it's not all guys, but it's most of them. If you were a college quarterback, high school quarterback, NFL quarterback, your inkling is your first inclination is, hey, we can throw it. We can throw it. So I don't know. I wouldn't be opposed to Brian Griese. If I were Brian Griese, I wouldn't be interested in taking the job here. So anyway, I digress. I just saw Bill Parcells. Somebody put Bill Parcells. He won it with Jeff Hostetler, and he won it with Phil Simms. Spot on. And he went again with Drew Bledsoe. Had a chance to get a third Super Bowl with 3 different quarterbacks, but he failed there. But that's a good one. That's a really good one there. Let me see. I thought I saw another name. Somebody said Don Shula. How many Super Bowls did Shula win? I mean, you're going way back on me. That's in the 70s. But I would assume he did it with, multiple guys. But he did. I know he had Bob Griese in the perfect season. Was it Ed Morrill with his other Super Bowl? I don't remember who the other guy might have been if he won a second Super Bowl. Maybe he won one with the Colts before he got to Miami. I don't know. Maybe he did win multiple Super Bowls with 2 different quarterbacks, but it ain't many. I told you, the list isn't very long, if it is. Anyway, Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Chris, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, writes, hey, Lou, hope all is well with you and the family. Besides Payne, who would be your top 2 free agent pursuits to help make this team better, and why? I haven't gotten there yet. I haven't looked at free agency yet. That's something I'll do in the coming weeks. We got a lot of time, man, which is why I don't try to condense everything into 1 or 2 shows. This is a long off season, man. Free agency ain't till March. We're still in January. So we got plenty of time to talk about free agents and who I think is a good fit for this team. I've seen a bunch of lists of free agent linebackers, and I've seen a couple. I give you a name. The name I gave you last year was Foye Oluokun, who I was very intrigued. The year before that, it was Matt Milano. These guys have been really good players. So I haven't missed at the linebacker position in free agency yet. The guy this year that I would be very intrigued by, if I'm the Tennessee Titans, there's no way I let him leave, but it's David Long. That's the name that we'll look out for. West Virginia linebacker. I think he was like a 5th round pick. He's turned into a beast for them. They felt really good letting Jahan Brown walk. Why? Because David Long took over and manned up that middle linebacker position. I'd love some David Long. I just know this. Remember the Tennessee Titans game? The interception Carson Wentz threw? Wasn't that a hell of a play? That was a diving interception. That was David Long. He was outstanding for the Titans this year. I wouldn't mind sniffing around him. But again, I'll have a list of guys at specific positions that we are going to be interested in. Obviously, offensive line, all 3 positions, center, guard, tackle. We should be interested in all 3 of those positions. Tight end, I'm interested. I don't think they're interested. Corner, we're definitely interested, right? So linebackers should be definitely interested. We'll talk about those positions. But the first order of business is taking care of home. Who are the guys here in Washington that you want back? Cam Curl, you want back. Daron Payne, you want back. Do you want Cole Holcomb back or not? I think they do. All right. So we'll see. If you bring Cole Holcomb back, then you're not most likely shopping for a linebacker in the market. The only way you're out shopping for goods at the linebacker store is if Cole Holcomb does not return. I think they want him back because when Ron started listing off the young players that he thought, had made strides under their tutelage and looked forward to coaching them in the future, Cole Holcomb was one of the names he rattled off. So I'd surmise that they'd like to have him back if at all possible. So we'll see. Plenty of time. Did I say Mount Trashmore? I think I did say Mount Trashmore. I meant Mount Rushmore. You know where my head is at. I'm from the 757. You got to excuse me, man. My brain be wandering and my subconscious be coming out sometimes. Not the Mount Trashmore. The Mount Rushmore. Y'all knew what I meant, man. And I probably said it like 3 or 4 times too, and it didn't even process in my brain that I was saying Trashmore. Shout out to all of y'all who know what Mount Trashmore is. That's no disrespect or slight to my man Joe. I meant Mount Rushmore. Anyway, I digress. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy JP writes, I'm intrigued with giving Howell a full year of starting, but we need an anchor at left tackle like Orlando Brown Jr. in free agency, or draft a left tackle at 16. I'm not interested in Orlando Brown Jr. While he was good, he was not great for the Chiefs, which is part of the reason that they have not been able to agree on terms. He wants a lot of money, and I don't think he's necessarily worth what he's asking for. First of all, I've already explained this to you guys. When you trade for a player, whether in season or after a season, and you're renting them with the mindset of owning them. Okay, right? You're renting to buy. You're not going to, trade a first-round pick for a guy and then let him walk in free agency. Case in point, Giants traded for Leonard Williams in season. They're not going to then, after the season, let him walk. They franchise tagged him, and then they finally got a deal done with him the following year. The Jaguars, the Rams traded for Jalen Ramsey. They're not going to let Jalen Ramsey walk after trading, 2 first-round picks for him. They're going to sign him to a long-term deal. You understand what I'm saying? Unless you're chasing after a chip and you're willing to give up what that team's asking, and then that guy's asking price after the season is too much, i.e. Von Miller with the Rams. That wasn't the first either. That was a second. But still, they gave up a second-round pick to the Broncos to get Von Miller. He helped them win a Super Bowl. They wanted him back, but they weren't going to give him a 6-year, $120 million deal like the Bills did. So he walked. But generally speaking, you trade for a guy in season, i.e. the Baltimore Ravens trading for Roquan Smith. I'm not trading for a guy, giving up a first-round pick just so that guy can leave. I'm renting with the option, which is going to more likely than not turn out into a buy. I'm going to buy this. If this guy's everything that I thought he was when I went out and traded for him, I'm going to buy this product. So Orlando Brown, when I said all that to say this, Orlando Brown more likely than not isn't getting out of Kansas City because they traded for him. They gave up draft capital for him. They're going to find a way to get him to stay in Kansas City, even though he hasn't been probably everything that they thought he was going to be. This is the thing I think a lot of you guys missed the boat on. And you're not wrong, JP. And people out there that advocate for us drafting and upgrading the left tackle, you're not wrong for wanting better than, Charles Leno Jr. Here's the thing. What he's doing on the left side isn't what you would call broken. All right. It's not broken. It's not necessarily working at 100% efficiency, not maximum efficiency, right? But it's not broke. Okay. Those batteries inside of that remote control car don't have the same amount of juice when you first installed them. Now, that truck isn't, it ain't taking off like it was once before when you first put those back, but it's still working, right? That mouse that I'm using to click on different things on my screen, it ain't moving as fast as it once did when I first put that battery in there, that AA. But that bitch is still moving, so guess what? I'm not taking that battery out, not until that shit is barely moving. Now I got to take it out, okay? Now it's broke. I need to fix it. You get what I'm saying? No, Charles Leno, that ain't the same juice he had when he was early in his career in Chicago, when they were pleasantly surprised with a 7th round pick out of Boise State that out of nowhere came and took over the left tackle position for them. Nah, that ain't that. But it's enough battery in that, there's enough juice in that battery that you're not thinking about replacing it right now. For some of y'all like, nah, I need new batteries. That's fine. I don't disagree with you. I'm telling you what they're thinking. It's not broke. They're not looking to fix that. They said, look, this line is so broken. If we got a position that we deem to be fixed already, we're not looking to create no more holes. We need to fix left guard. We need to fix center. We need to fix right guard and potentially right tackle. If I got to do all of that shit, do you think I'm trying to create another problem at left tackle? No, the answer is no. So they're going to probably leave him where he's at left tackle. They're probably going to leave Cosme on the line. Now, is it right tackle? Is it right guard? I don't know. I think they've got Cosme penciled in somewhere on the right side of that line. Okay. I don't think they trust Chase Roullier at center, but I don't necessarily think they're going to go out of their way to replace him. All right. But they may be thinking that their comments were interesting about the center position after the season, because that's 2 years in a row and that position has really hurt us. So I do think they're thinking about doing something there. And then both guard positions have to be upgraded. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Whether you do that in-house with Chris Paul or Sam Cosme, or you go outside looking for that, something's got to be done at both guard positions and potentially right tackle. I don't see them fixing left tackle. To them, it's not broken, so they don't need to fix it. Maybe the juice isn't as good as it once was, but it's still enough in there where I'm not thinking about replacing the batteries quite yet. You get where I'm going with that? Let's see. Chevy Kitchen, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, how do you feel about Leftwich with us? Kind of talked about that already. Not the biggest Byron Leftwich fan. I wasn't a fan of what he did in the run game. Yep, Tampa's offensive line wasn't great, but he just stopped trying to run the ball. 45-year-old Tom Brady should not lead the league in completions. That should never happen, man. That's irresponsible, if you ask me. And I thought the clincher for me was watching him on Monday night against the Cowboys. They get inside the 5-yard line, and he didn't even think about running it. I think they had 3 red zone trips inside the 10, inside the 5. I don't think they attempted a single run. That's nasty. Ugh, that's nasty. I'm good. We just got out of a relationship that was like that. That shit is toxic. I'm not trying to enter into another one of those. All right. There's a time to throw it. There's a time to run it. And then there's a time where you get to choose which is which. Leftwich decided it's never a wrong time to sling that bitch. I'm good. I just got out of one of those relationships, man. Those shits are messy. I'm good. Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, come on, man. Dak has an above average game, and you want to have this kid. Jalen has been doing that all year. You need to give him some respect over Dak. That's such a random comment, Duncan. Like, I don't know. No one was talking about Jalen Hurts or Dak. Just random. You just came in and just randomly, like, it would be like we all talking about, did you watch the Bucks and Cowboys game, and you walk in and you start talking about the Chargers need to fire their head coach, Brandon Staley. And we're like, bro, where the hell did that shit come from? Or you come in and you like, yo, did you see the John Morant dunk? Bro, we talking about football. What are you doing? Like, it's random. But there's a conversation to be had about Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott and who ranks where in the division. We'll have plenty of time to do that in the offseason. I can tell you this, if both quarterbacks are playing at their peak, it's not a discussion. Dak Prescott is better than Jalen Hurts. Okay. Dak Prescott just turned in arguably the best performance of his career, and they smoked the Buccaneers, and it wasn't close. I don't know if Jalen Hurts is capable of that or not. We'll see. We'll see what he looks like in this postseason appearance that he's going to have here against the Giants. But Jalen Hurts was good this year. Really good this year. I'm anxious to see if the league catches up with what the Eagles are doing, or if it's just Shane Steichen deserves a ton of credit. I've already said that. What they've done schematically has been phenomenal. They made it tough to stop that Eagles offense. Couple that with a absolutely dominant offensive line and some big time weapons to get the football to. And Hurts did a really good job of distributing the rock and using his legs when it needed to be, added into the mix. But I don't think he's better than Dak Prescott. But we'll see. We'll see. We will see. AVL1. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Commanders lucky to retain Heinicke as a backup. Lawrence throws 4 picks in first half. Imagine TH4 with 4 interceptions in the first half. Never happened, but he did step in and win when all seemed lost. Look, Heinicke is capable of turning it over 4 times in a half. He tried to do it against the Green Bay Packers. He tried to. Packers picked him off for a touchdown. He fumbled for a touchdown. That got negated by a penalty. There were 2 or 3 other passes that should have been picked off. He tried, but the Packers wanted none of it. That said, don't ever mention Trevor Lawrence and Taylor Heinicke in the same sentence. They're not remotely close. And I think you're right about us being lucky to have him as a backup. I myself am a Taylor Heinicke fan in terms of him being a backup. You guys know how I feel about him. I do not subscribe to the Derek B theory that if he were back, that he would be a hindrance to Sam Howell. Those two get along very well, and Howell really owes the opportunity that he just got to Taylor Heinicke. That said, don't think for one second that there wouldn't be, as Derek B pointed out, fans that would be calling for Heinicke in any point of the season if Sam Howell started to struggle. Ron would have to be headstrong and understand that there's no benefit to going to Heinicke other than trying to save your job if you've gotten to that point. But if you got to go to Heinicke, you're probably already fired, bro. So, I mean, at that point, it's whatever. But I told you, I love Heinicke as a backup. I want him here. So, you see what the number is? And if that fits what you want to do, I think you bring him back, personally. But we'll see. King of the North, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, so your argument against Roman is you would rather not win if the wide receivers aren't getting stats, or is it that you don't think his offense can win a Super Bowl? It's both. So this is what I fear. We have, first of all, I want to win. And if you told me, it was just so funny watching Ravens fans rejoice. They were acting the same way that we were acting when we got rid of Scott Turner. Okay. But wait, like 10 times worse. Like, our shit is on a much smaller scale because we suck. So us rejoicing at getting rid of Scott Turner was exciting, but don't nobody give a shit because you're the Commanders. You guys suck anyway. So what difference does it make? Greg Roman actually had success. Lamar Jackson was actually the league MVP under his watchful eye. The Ravens are winning 10 games almost every season as long as Lamar is healthy under Greg Roman. They're not getting it done in the playoffs. Is that a byproduct of Greg Roman, or is that more an indictment on Lamar Jackson? I don't know. Maybe it's a combination of the two. But What I'm saying is we've built this team in a certain image, okay? And we've spent resources, whether it's money or draft picks. We've acquired players that should allow us to play a specific brand of football. An exciting brand, an explosive and dynamic brand. And we know these guys are capable. They've proven it already. Young in the case of Jahan, it's still a small sample size, but I think we've seen enough to know what this kid is capable of. And Terry on a much larger scale. Curtis is a good bridge between the two, okay? Does a little bit of everything, moves the sticks on third downs, really capable if you throw it to him. I got no problems with Curtis. I'd actually like to have him back. This is the last year of his deal. I'd actually like to have him back. He's won me over. I wasn't a Curtis Samuel fan when we were first pursuing him. I wanted Corey Davis. You guys know that. He's won me over. That said, we've built this thing from the ground up at the receiver position. We went from Trey Quinn and Steven Sims Jr. and Ryan Grant and Dontrell Inman and Isaiah Wright. We built this shit from the ground up. And now we got some viable shit at the receiver position, which in this league, look around at the playoffs, man. Look around. Look at the teams to the left. Most of them have dogs, not dog, dogs. S plural at receiver. You ain't winning in this league consistently if your receivers aren't capable of taking over a football game. We have that in Washington. The blueprint is there. We just need a quarterback, an offensive line, and a play caller to bring it all together. You bring in Greg Roman. Those receivers are dead on arrival. They're dead. Now, we may win some games, but you're sacrificing the thing that we've built from the ground up, and there's no guarantee that he's going to be able to take whatever we provide him with and win at the level that he was able to do. He may only get us to the Buffalo level with Tyrod Taylor. That was a first-round exit. That was in on some Homer Abe Simpson shit. In, take your hat off, put it on the coat rack, walk in a circle, take your hat off the coat rack, walk back out the door. That might be the shit he get us on. He may not get us to the Lamar Jackson stage where we making it every year and we just got to break through. I want to win with these receivers starring with a great supporting cast of running backs who do their job when they're called upon. But I want to win with these receivers tearing shit up. I want to be explosive. I'm sick of nickel and diming my way down the field. I'm sick and tired of having to eke and scratch my way to 25, 20 points, 23 if we're lucky. On a good week is 23. I'm sick and tired of that shit. You bring Greg Roman in here, it's going to be much of the same. And we don't have Lamar Jackson under center. We don't have Colin Kaepernick. We don't have a dynamic athlete. Sam Howell is a good athlete. He ain't Lamar Jackson or Colin Kaepernick. So understand that there will be a cap on what he's able to do with Sam Howell. You're probably going to get more likely than not Tyrod Taylor results. So, yeah, it's a combination of both. I don't think you're winning the Super Bowl with him here. And I want our receivers to lead the way because I think we're capable of scoring 28, 29 points a game. I want to see that. Then you don't put as much on your defense to have to hold a team to 17 or 16 to win. Hey, if they give up 23, we can still win. Because our defense, I don't know if you realize this, our defense is not elite, okay? And it never has been. It wasn't elite in 2020 when we won the division. We played bad quarterbacks and bad teams. We saw that in 2021. We knew we were going to be tested in 2021. And for the first 8-9 weeks of the season, we failed miserably. Failed miserably. It wasn't until that Green Bay game I thought they started to turn it around. 2022 defense was solid. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. It was solid. Started out horrible in the first 2 weeks. Thought they did some good things against Philadelphia in week 3. And from that point forward, I thought they got better defensively. Once Cam Curl came back, which was week 3 against Philadelphia. And then you saw what happened towards the end of the season when we needed the defense to step up. Couldn't stop the San Francisco 49ers. Couldn't stop the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson came into Washington and scored 3 touchdown passes, no interceptions. Dude had been ass all year, straight cheeks. We let him come in and bless us. Injuries or not, I don't give a shit. It was pathetic. Defense is not elite. You need to score points. One thing Greg Roman has always been afforded, no matter where he's gone. With that run game that he's deployed, he's always come equipped with an elite defense backing that shit up. You go to San Francisco back in 2011 and 2012 when they had Alex Smith, and then when they got Kaepernick and went to the Super Bowl, you talking Patrick Willis, Navarro, Bowman and company. That shit, and Justin Smith, that shit was lights out in San Francisco. Lights out, baby. You fast forward to the Buffalo Bills with Tyrod Taylor. That was a damn good defense in Buffalo. A damn good defense that was shutting shit down. And then you look at Baltimore. They haven't always been great on defense, but they were damn good. That ain't what we putting on the field. So, yeah, it's my argument against him is I want to win with these receivers. I want somebody. I don't want a run-first approach. I don't want a guy that's going to ignore the receiver position and instead opt to get the ball to the tight ends and the running backs. I want a guy that's going to come in here and embrace this receiver position that we built. We built this shit. I feel like Starship Jefferson. We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. We built this receiver position. We built this shit from the ground up. I want to take advantage of it. Spent money on Terry, spent the first-round pick on Jahan, spent some money on Curtis Samuel, spent the third-round pick on Diami. I want to see my damn dividends. You damn right. And I don't think you're going to win a Super Bowl with him. So put both of them shits together. Dejan Bell, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Dejan writes, do you think at some point in 2023 we'd shop Antonio Gibson around? It's possible. Nothing's out of bounds. You know, if his role continues to diminish, remember, Scott Turner was a huge part of why they drafted Antonio Gibson. He was his biggest fan coming out of Memphis. Gibson looked at him and said, I see Christian McCaffrey type ability. Remember that? Remember that's all we heard his rookie season after they drafted him. Scott Turner was the catalyst for that. He's no longer here. They replaced him with a guy that Ron is way more fond of in Brian Robinson Jr. Let's say that they go out and it's not a stretch. J.D. McKissick's neck may force him to retire. I told y'all that in the regular season. I said, I'm worried about J.D.'s neck, y'all. He may not be back. He might be done. You start talking about necks 2 years in a row, I get worried. Would it be out of bounds for them to draft a running back this year? 4th, 5th, 6th round? Nope. I don't think so. You draft a young boy, he comes in here, he impresses. Somebody offers you a 4th or a 5th round pick for Antonio Gibson. You know you're not re-signing him in the offseason. Yeah, you're damn right he could be traded at the trade deadline. Absolutely. I don't think it's going to happen. How often do you see a running back get traded at the deadline not named Christian McCaffrey? Like that's not something that usually happens. You know, you got to be a super impactful back to get traded at the trade deadline. I don't know if Gibson is exactly that for someone else. I think he's definitely a guy that you'd have to look at, though, going into the last year of his deal. Excuse me. King of the North. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, King of the North, writes, so Heinicke, Scott Turner, and Shurmur were all with the Vikings in 2016. Yes, I think Shurmur was there in 16 initially with, I want to say Brad Childress was the head coach. And then I think Brad Childress was the guy that brought him there in 16. But in saying that, it was the end of 16, and then he got promoted to offensive coordinator in 2017, I believe. I'm not sure if they all overlapped or not. You may be on to something there. Heinicke was there in 15 and 16, but that 16 could be briefly 16, and really there's no real overlap because really Shurmur was really only there in 2017 in Minnesota. I think he got there at the very end of 2016, which I don't. Yeah, so it's a little convoluted. I'll take your word for it and just say that they were all there in 2016. I'll take your word for it. Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, this is to the Dallas fans. How you like the fact that Dak is the NFL interception champion? And to the Giants fans, you think you will beat Dallas next week? You think we will beat Dallas next week? Dak is definitely the interception champ. That's why I didn't think they would beat Tampa. I was shocked that he came out and stroked it the way that he did. I don't think the Eagles or the Giants are going to beat the Eagles. And furthermore, I don't think the Giants are capable of beating Dallas if Dallas were to get by. Let me just say this. Me and my dad were talking, me and Boss Man were talking today. And he said the winner of the San Francisco-Dallas game is going to the Super Bowl. I agree with that statement. To me, both of those teams will beat Philadelphia if they are to advance. I think Philadelphia is going to beat the Giants, just for the record. And you'll get my predictions tomorrow on the podcast. But I agree with him. I think Dallas can beat Philadelphia. They barely beat Dallas in Philadelphia with Cooper Rush in the lineup. And Eagles fans are saying they barely beat us with Gardner Minshew in Dallas. Touche. I just think that if all things are even, the Cowboys will beat the Eagles. And the 49ers will beat the Eagles. So I believe the winner of that game is going to the Super Bowl, representing the NFC. So that's a big game, 49ers and Cowboys. That said, I don't think the Giants factor into any of this. They're just happy to be here. You know, they're looking to pull a massive upset. But if they lose this game, if they get their asses handed to them, they're like, shit, look, man, we were playing with house money any damn way. This is just the beginning. We ain't just visiting in the playoffs. We looking to make this shit a permanent residence. So, we'll see. We'll see. Let's see. John Perez. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, JP, writes, there's something nobody is really talking about. Samuel being a free agent in 2024. We may have to prepare for his departure. JSN from OSU at 16. Nah, you're not drafting Smith and Jigba. Look, even if Samuel is departing, potentially next year, which I just told you I would love to have him back. But you can't pay everybody. You're not drafting another receiver in the first round after you drafted one last year. That's insane. We're not hurting at receiver. Okay, we're good. We're strapped, armed, and loaded for bear at the receiver position. And I honestly think if you get a real coordinator in here that maximizes that group, I still think there's a lot more on that Dyami Brown bone. You know, what can Brown do for you? A hell of a lot more than the shit we saw last year. We just got a little sample. That Tennessee game, that catch against Atlanta on their first possession that ultimately ended up being a touchdown drive, that shit was a thing of beauty in the rain, diving like that. Like, Dyami's got more to give, man. I think Dyami Brown, he had a big catch right before halftime that set up the field goal attempt against the Eagles. I think there's a lot more to Dyami Brown than meets the eye. And a real coordinator would tap into that shit. We would be able to go 4 deep at receiver, kicking ass. So I don't, if Curtis doesn't come back, somebody else, i.e. Dyami Brown, somebody else can step into that role. And if you need to, you could draft a guy next year. You don't need to draft a guy this year. So no, I don't think that's going to happen. DC Dude, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. DC Dude writes, pick one for your OC, Greg Roman or Scott Turner. It'd be Greg Roman. I mean, Greg Roman's a winner. Scott Turner isn't. Stops. The buck stops there for me. I wouldn't love Roman for us. I think he'd do wonders for the Jets. I really, truly do. He'd be perfect for that offense. With the defense that they play in New York, coupled with the tight ends that they've already accumulated, and that offensive line that they've spent so many resources in, George Fant and Mekhi Becton and the USC kid that they drafted, Elijah Vera Tucker, and they spent a lot of resources on that offensive line at the tight end position. They spent resources at the running back position, Michael Carter and Breece Hall. They're ready to go, man. They're ready for the Greg Roman plan, if you ask me. We're not. We need a whole revamping of the offensive line. We need revamping of the tight end room. Only thing we've got ready for them is the running backs. But we don't have shit else ready for the Greg Roman plan. So I'm not looking to uproot the shit that we've tried to build here to fit his style of coaching. He's a coordinator, not a head coach. Go get a coordinator that will come in here and take the pieces that we currently have and maximize those shits. Ryan A., thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, people don't realize how we are in the running for the number 1 pick next season. Well, I need to hear this because I don't think we're anywhere near the number 1 pick. But let me hear you out. Next year could go sideways fast. You're not wrong there. Let's continue on with this comment. You got to go through the teams. We are in a small pool that could go number 1 next year. Jets, Raiders, Saints, Falcons. I don't know about that. Now, I thought you were on the right track. I was looking for some reasons as to how it could go sideways. Clearly, you get new ownership in here. Ron's on a probationary period. He knows he's coaching for his job. There could be some decisions that are made based off of trying to win now, not thinking about the future. We saw that with Jay Gruden in his lame duck season in 19, and that went sideways quickly. Obviously, you get a schedule that is front-loaded like Jay's was in 19, where you knew for a fact we were starting 0-5, and there was no way Jay could win a game. If that happens to Ron next year, and we start out with Buffalo week 1, and then from there we go and we play the Dolphins, and they're really good early in the season next year. And then from there we play San Francisco. Like, if they start us out with a murderer's row schedule, because they teed it up for us this year and we blew it. We screwed the pooch. But if they tee it up, if they go in the opposite direction and they give us a brutal schedule to start, and Ron starts 0-6 and gets canned, yes, it could go sideways. Absolutely. You're not wrong. But I've stated this multiple times. Ron has never had a season where he has less than 6 wins, other than the year he got fired in 2019. And he had 5 wins. He was 5-7 when he got fired. He would have won another game. I just don't see how Ron goes from never having a season that he's coached start to finish, where he's never had less than 6 wins, and all of a sudden he's got a season where he's got 3 wins. I just, with the talent that we have, again, we were 3-13. That's the worst collection of talent. And I've watched some bad teams. There were some 4-win teams and some 5-win teams during the 90s after Gibbs 1.0. There were some lean years, man. You know, some lean years in there. 93 and 94. Some lean years. 93 wasn't as bad. 94 was terrible. 95. These are some lean years, man. Nothing compares to what I watched in 2019. And we were still a 3-win team. And we still didn't get the number 1 pick. Ain't no way that we can field a team that we will field in 2023 that will come close to the number 1 pick. We might have the 6th pick. We might have the 7th pick. I'm not telling you we won't be a top 10 pick team. But number 1, I don't see that, man. I don't see that. We'll see. We'll see. I don't see it. Luck, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Bears just requested to interview Chris Harris. It's coming. It may not be this coaching cycle, but, and look, if Ron gets fired, he won't be here next year anyway. But I'm telling you, he's going to be somebody's defensive coordinator at some point. And I don't know if he'll be good or not, but I know wherever he goes, the players will adore him. They'll play hard for him. And if he can coach, if he's got any ability to scheme it up in him, he'll have a chance to be super successful because of his personality and his love for the game and the energy that he brings. You know, there's something to be said about energy. A lot of people laughed at Dan Campbell, biting kneecaps, all of the weird shit he was saying and doing. There's something to be said about energy, man. You look at Robert Saleh and what he's doing. You look at Sean McVay. These are energetic young guys, man, running around, having fun. Players respond to that shit. Say what you want. A lot of people had negative shit to say about Chris Harris. Oh, what have we done in the secondary? Who has he coached up? And then we started naming players, and they're like, oh, he did do that, didn't he? He did get the most out of Ronald Darby. Oh, okay, yeah, he did do that. Oh, damn, Cam Curl is playing well under his leadership and tutelage. Oh, okay. Benjamin St. Juste is playing really well under him, isn't he? Yeah, those things are occurring. So I think the dude can coach. I think it's only a matter of time. And I'm telling you, he's one of these guys that I think will go in and absolutely tear up an interview, destroy that shit to the point where they're like, yo, we got to hire this dude. So I can't recall him ever having an interview for a defensive coordinator position. This might be his first one while here in Washington. I could be wrong about that. He's not going to have 3 or 4 of these and not get a job. That's how I feel. But we'll see. Dejan Bell, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, do you think having 3 or 4 looks would help Chase impact the game more? Not comparing him to Parsons, but it'd be nice if we moved him around. I've been advocating this since we got him day one. I said him and Tez. I think, and this is why I said I love Jack Del Rio, but he's antiquated. You know, he's still stuck in the mindset of our defensive ends are going to line up at defensive end. And that's that. You can stand up if you want. You put your hand in the dirt, but you're going to be at defensive end. And I watched Myles Garrett rush against us, and they stood him up, and they moved Myles Garrett everywhere. He'll line him as a 3-tech. He'll line up, you know, wide 9. He'll line up standing up. He stood up against us as a middle linebacker. and at the snap, rushed the center, blitzed him, and ran right by him and sacked Carson Wentz. And I'm like, Chase Young can't do that. Montez Sweat can't do that. You can't overload. You can't put Chase Young and Montez Sweat on the same side and overload a side. No, is that impossible? Do they have to be on opposite sides of each other? I mean, I'm asking for a friend. Yeah, I think it would help Chase Young if they moved him around. They moved him around at Ohio State. He's got to do a better job of winning in one-on-one situations, though. I don't want to make this all about moving around. You get a one-on-one, win a one-on-one. That's what it's about. Okay? Then we can worry about moving you around. This is the thing. If you can't win a one-on-one, what the hell is moving you around going to do? All you're going to do is get your ass kicked wherever else I move you. You know, you might be fast enough to run by the center and maybe not fast enough to run by the tackle. Yeah, that's possible. You know, some of these guys are better athletes on the edges. So maybe it's a little bit more, you know, foreseeable for him to be able to out-athletic an interior offensive lineman more so than a tackle. But just win one-on-one matchups. Then we can start worrying about moving you around because now they're trying to double team you. I do think moving him around would help, though. I've advocated for that numerous times. We just never have gotten it. So anyway, that's the last super chat. So we'll get out of here. I appreciate y'all for joining me tonight. I look forward to the comment section of this video. I've made a bunch of, you know, different points, different arguments. I know all of them you won't agree with. I know people are going to be watching this thing late. They're going to see, you know, and hear some of the things that I said, and they're going to have rebuttals for it. I'm waiting. I'm all for it. I'm here. I'm waiting. And I like the dialogue that is, you know, being had. Lamar Jackson isn't coming here. So I just wanted to clean that up. I spoke about it. I was a lot more gung-ho on that on Wednesday after the firing or the mutual parting of ways with Greg Roman. And then not only just that, John Harbaugh saying that Lamar Jackson will be in the discussions when they start looking for this new offensive coordinator. He'll be a part of that process. That tells me that they're doing everything on their end, the mend fences, and to bring Lamar in and to try to get to a place where they can get him locked up long term. So you're not doing that for a guy that you don't believe is a part of your future. So anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Thank you guys for joining me here on the Command Post. You know what it is. Post up and take command. I will see most of you tomorrow for the podcast. We'll make predictions for the divisional round weekend. And if anything happens with this team, any big interviews, they interviewed Charles London today. So again, we'll see how that goes for them. I'm still like, I don't really know what to expect from him. He's been two of the guys that I mentioned, and I did a video on this with, you know, Eric Studeville and Charles London. Those are lifer running back coaches. So again, that kind of fits in that narrative of they want to run the football, but London is a little bit different because what they did in Atlanta was so unorthodox. Unless they're just trying to pick his brain to kind of see some of the things they may be able to implement some of that with, you know, Sam Howell, unless they're trying to pick his brain, I'm intrigued as to why they want to go after him. Because I don't want our offense to look anything like the Atlanta offense. Their run game was exceptional, but they couldn't throw it worth a damn. So I'm interested to see what that conversation was like. We'll never know, but we'll see what they decide to do. I still think Pat Shurmur is the leader in the clubhouse, and don't rule out Ken Zampese. Don't rule out Ken Zampese. Anything happens, you'll see this face all up in your space, but otherwise, I'll see you for the podcast tomorrow. We'll be live after Saturday's action, after the Eagles-Giants game. We'll be live, breaking it all down. Jacksonville, Kansas City, Giants, Eagles, and then Sunday we'll do it all over again. You got the Cowboys, 49ers, and of course you got the Bills and the Bengals. So anyway, I digress. You guys get out of here. I'll see you guys next time. You know what it is. God bless and good night.